Are we live? Yeah. Assalamualaikum,
Yeah.
everybody. This is the original Scary Ummi, and we're here with Weekends of Joy, powered by instaTUTE. And for those of you who saw us last week, we were here with Shehla Imran, who is an instructor from Karachi and a very well-known instructor for O levels English. So last week we did readers as leaders, and today we're going to do writing skills. And this is an
Yes.
ongoing series that we're doing with instaTUTE. And through this series we want mothers to meet all these amazing instructors, get tips. So right before this one, it was a really fascinating session on robotics, and Shehla will also be telling us some of the books that you guys had asked for last week. And I would really recommend that all of you, if you can go back and see the recording, because last week's session was really fantastic on reading skills. Also, I will remind all of you that if you download the instaTUTE app now, like during this session, you will get 1,000 rupees for free. We have uploaded videos to teach you how to download it. And soon we're going to be starting demo sessions on instaTUTE. So it's a good idea for all of you to download the app, Abhi, and you will get 1,000 rupees free credit to book a session. So the download links are for both Apple phones and Android phones, and we've downloaded the links, we've uploaded the links, we've uploaded videos to help you. So if you haven't, I would also strongly urge you to do so. So welcome back, Shehla, and good to have you
Same.
here.
Same here. It was great to be back on the Scary Yummy session again, live session definitely. And it's a joy to be here on the weekends of joy, of course. Delightful, extremely. And I hope that everybody, did find it quite insightful last time as well, as we were discussing the reading skills and how to develop the reading habits as well, and how to create that kind of environment in the home. So it was, I think, for the mothers, it was hopefully beneficial or useful as such. Gee. So today, of course, we are moving on to writing and improving the writing skills, something that I think has been the essence of the academics, because writing skills are used everywhere. It is cuts across the curriculum for sure, because writing is there in each and every subject that we are doing. So for us, it is extremely important how to for the child to express themselves properly and effectively, so that they are convincing enough and they gain the certain marks that they're looking for, even they develop the writing skills, so to speak. So this is something that we need to focus on. So primarily, when we discuss, if with your leave, if I can begin this with your permission, you can start off with this. So the thing is that, especially when we look at writing skills, there are basically, we look at the three stages of writing skills. The first is the struggle the learner needs to go through. The struggle is, of course, there because there's always a, I mentioned earlier as well, there's always a fear of the blank page. And so to say, when you have something in front of you, you need to express yourself and there's nothing written on it. Where do you begin? How do you begin? So there is a fear, impending fear, which is inside of us, especially the learner, especially the writer, as you say, or the student. And they always have this, because they don't know how, where and how to begin. So that is something that needs to be addressed as well. I will talk about the struggles first before I move on to the other two stages. And of course, there's also fear that what if we write something wrong? That means what if there are spelling errors, there's grammatical mistakes are there. What if we are unable to write this proper sentence structures? All that is there, which is going through the mind of the student as such. So all of these have come up, and collectively they appear quite looming, and they're overwhelming for the writers as well, especially anybody who is attempting, especially children or even older children for that matter, when they're attempting to write, this becomes very, very scary for them, so to speak. When you talk about, they have this kind of thing. What if, and the teachers over here as well, they are also, I feel, very strict in marking as well, because each and every mistake is caught. Especially when we talk about writing, each and every mistake is highlighted. Each and everything is, given in such a manner that that you're put in the spotlight. So it is something under the
So
spotlight as well.
some people, I know कि जो IB system है, like my daughter is in that system. So उसमें they say कि don't check spellings. Like that's kind of what they say. But my sons are in like a Cambridge system, and in the Cambridge system they say no, you must check spellings. So what is a better approach?
Well, actually, that I'm just coming to the same query that you have. The whole thing is there is a fine balance, and definitely when you're encouraging the students to write or you're encouraging the children to write, then you have to make sure that you have to forego a lot of things. Particularly because see, writing is something that is innate; it has to come from within. And if you are like the stronger your feelings are, the powerful your expression will be. So the whole point is that if you want to encourage someone, you want to motivate someone, you want them to begin their writing journey, you have to allow them to express themselves whichever way they like. So they will of course be writing wrong spellings unless and until there's a test and assessment. So the writing need not to be judged every single time something is written. And if they, even if they're writing like stories or they're writing anything, even expressing their feelings or thoughts or emotions on the piece of paper, writing does not necessarily mean that it has to be a proper written kind of essay, or proper story or something like that. It could be just a paragraph, or it could be also be like brainstorming. It could be just mind mapping, just writing words on the thing and just trying to formulate or planning for that matter. So it could just be the initial stage of writing that we could talk about, and then the child moves on. But if you give that kind of plane to the child to express themselves without being too judgmental, like even last time I said that we tend to be too critical about everything that the children write or the children do. So I think to allow them to express themselves, allow them to grow through this writing, it is very important to give them that kind of free hand. So if you give them that free writing experience that we talk about, that that is important ways, because that is the way that they will learn through trial and error. No one's going to be perfect till day. There's no brilliant there's no perfectionism as such, even in writing for that matter. Even if you talk about like authors and everything, they have to go through entire process. And if you don't allow the child to experience that entire process of writing, how do you expect the child to come out and write something beautiful or creative? Because they will draft it and they will redraft it, and then they will come up with something. So it is something we have to understand, that they have to go through, and you have to make them go through the entire the pre-writing and the while writing and the post-writing process. So the whole thing has to be there. So there are different stages of writing. So when we talk about not trying to sort of hold them on their spellings, then we need to be sure that we have provided them with enough vocabulary, we have provided them with enough practice, we have provided them with enough exposure, we have provided them with enough a topical vocabulary. We need to be sure of that before we become judgmental. If the child is writing for the first time, for example, and the word is, for example, new for the child, then for sure the child is bound to make mistakes. Now, if you're going to catch on each and every error, then how do you expect the child to grow and learn and then experience the whole thing? Because what will happen then is that if you mark and you sort of be very critical on whatever they're writing initially, then it will actually hinder their writing, because it stops the flow. See, your creative juices need to flow. You have to let the child be free, like I mentioned earlier as well. So when
Shella,
this yes,
Shella, sorry to interrupt you,
G,
but I wanted to ask you that जब आप ये free writing करते हो या when you let children just write what
yes,
they want, तो
yes.
उसमें बहुत बड़ा risk ये नहीं होता, like I'm facing that with my son who's 11, that like he has good vocabulary, he has great
Hmm.
ideas, but when he writes, it's kind of all over the place, like the structure of beginning, middle,
Huh.
end.
See, the whole
When the
point is that, yes, I agree with you. That is where the brainstorming comes in. That is where the mind mapping comes in. And that is where you also structure it a bit in this way, that you tell them that how you will go about the entire story. For example, if you're writing a story or something, then you have to give us some sort of a plan or a skeletal framework, and that is where the draft comes in. So first you ask him what will happen, how will you introduce it. Like there's a whole story mountain actually, the story that needs to be actually conquered before you actually end into the writing. So there's a whole introduction level of it, and then there's a rising action to it, and then definitely there's one where the conflict occurs, and there's a where the problem arises, and there's a resolution to the problem, and ultimately you come to the conclusion. So definitely the children need to be taught that too. That would be one of the methods of teaching writing, and that will be one of the tools that by which the child will learn about the story, how to take the story along, what sequencing. For this, what you can do is basically make them read stories a lot and make them identify that what happened in the beginning, what happened in the middle, what happened towards the end. So the child grasps on very quickly, and they understand, okay, this is how the story opened. This is how this was the setting of the story. These were the characters. This was the place. This was the time. Then they move on to the middle. What happened over there? What was the descriptive level? What was the situation? What was the scenario that was created? They can build upon it. And further, what was the issue or the problem as such that were faced by the characters? And eventually, how do they decide to resolve it? And then finally, you come to the conclusion. Yes, you need to give them those kind of hooks. Definitely, you will have to give them those kind of levels to play.
So you
Move on from
recommend
a
that
team.
children should read more short stories? Is that better?
Okay, now the whole point is there's one thing which I also mentioned is like they can have targeted reading, particularly when they're very focused on something and they have to arrive at a certain destination faster. Like for example, in writing, if they need to write a lot of letters, for example, then they need to what they need to do is then to read up a lot of those kind of writing in order to become familiar with it, and then they have to practice it likewise. Now it depends. So if they do targeted and focused writing, which is normally done in schools, because if they have to write, for example, a narrative story, or they have to write a descriptive scene, or something like that, then they will, of course, the teacher will ask them to read certain kind of passages. The teacher will expose them to certain kind of writing which is similar, and so that they become familiar, likewise I mentioned earlier. So it's important that they write like they read something which is similar, so they can produce some kind of writing which is close enough. And if they want to, and they should also be very very avid readers as well, because they need to have continuously reading books and continuously indulging themselves in this kind of habitual activity, so that they can. And reading, of course, has its own benefits. It's going to impact writing, because then you will know, but then they will have to find their own interest as well. So there needs to be targeted reading as well done, because if they have to write similar kind of essay, but a child who is a reader, and will do much better, because they have read so many different kinds of stories that they will be able to reproduce it. And normally at the lower levels, particularly, they're more focused on maybe story writing, and they're more focused on creative writing, and they give you pictures, and they're in the
तो
picture stories.
Shehla,
They, yes.
मैं अक्सर ढूंढ रही होती हूँ, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आप ग्रेड 6 या ग्रेड 10 या ग्रेड 9
Yes.
की बात करें, तो इनको लाइक एसेज लिखने होते हैं, इनको नॉन फिक्शन रिपोर्ट्स लिखनी होती हैं, इनको क्रोनोलॉजिकल रिपोर्ट्स, इन चीजों के अच्छे राइटिंग सैंपल्स तो नहीं मिलते कि मिल
नहीं
जाते हैं.
मिल जाते. Actually, the thing is that if you know that the CAI already has A and A star graded samples that are available, right? And so they can read a lot of those samples and see how was the story constructed, and what was required, what were the elements of it such, and how did it progress. So that those samples you will find in their past papers as well, especially if you look at the solved ones. So they can read up a lot of samples then, and they can reproduce something similar to that, because the vocabulary is also there. So they can practice a lot and look at the marking schemes of how they're being marked, and what has been given as a priority. Especially as far as the structure, the formation, the fluence, the sort of the sequence of it is concerned, and like the flow of it is concerned, the structural flow itself, that needs to be checked as well, and how was it concluded. So there are a lot of samples that are available, especially if you're
Are
looking
these
at targeted
available
writing
for
team.
free? Like, are these available for free?
For free? Well, you need to search on the net for that. Well, as far as the vocabulary and the phrases are concerned, that link I can provide you. Their GCE exam links are there, and they have all different kinds of vocabulary that is being used for different kind of things. There are themed writing that is done. Now, and for us, there are major themes that are being used. Like, for example, there's a theme of fear, there's a theme of happiness, there's a theme of anger, or disappointment, and or animosity or hatred as such as well. So what happens is that when we have themes, a themed kind of writing which is done with the students, then they focus on, for example, in that most of the topics will fall under happiness. If there's some kind of wedding event, there are occasions, there are other experiences that bring joy or delight, or something that they have done well and they have produced a great result. All of these, how to actually write expressive writing, especially under the happiness theme, then the students can be taken in that direction. So even if you outline the broad themes and ask the students to write on those broad themes, then eventually one of the topics will come from those themes only. And it is known fact that all the topics, these themes they revolve around these themes only. They don't come mostly out of the themes. Either you will get a topic that is totally harbored on fear, either you get a topic that's harbored on anger. one which is on maybe happiness, one on sadness, or something or the other will come. So if the child is already practicing on the themes, and eventually what will happen is that they will get the vocabulary likewise of those themes. And when they have their vocabulary in front of them, and they have written about maybe 3 or 4 essays, even 5 essays on happiness, or they've written five happiness topics which has sadness as the central theme or fear as a central theme, then they know that even if this topic comes, like we include this sentence in the writing, they will know that if I put it on fear, I'll be able to get all the vocabulary. So you will get a whole list there, and then the child will eventually become, will have a command on this. Why? Because they already know that they can write on these 4 or 5 themes very easily, because they have a continuous practice on it, and of producing such kind of stories, and particularly when you talk about dialogues which can be entered in the stories as well. So I think it'll be easy on the on the students as well if they look at the themes of it. G. Yes.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Are there any, like, I know कि आप generally O level students को पढ़ाती हैं, O level
Yeah, I
students
have
of
taught all. I know exposure of all the students, and now because I teach older students, because definitely because I have that kind of expertise bowling, right?
So what I was going to say is कि like you told us last week how reading is so integral to becoming a leader. What are the key steps towards becoming a good writer? Like, would you recommend mothers of younger children to do vocabulary lists? Should they do spelling bees? Should they just make their children write a diary? Like, any tips that are across
Well,
age?
one thing I would definitely ask the mothers of especially young children do is to maintain their diaries and maintain their frequent writing, because definitely every day the child should be writing something or the other. It is not necessary that they want to write a story. It may be a recipe, maybe a game that they want to talk about. It's maybe about the feeling, thought, emotion, anything. Basically, just tell them write every day they need to write 1 page or 1.5 page at least of writing. They need to do that. What will happen is they're consistently doing that writing, and they're of course doing reading on the side, because it both of them are of course it is they complement each other, because a good reader is a good writer, eventually, because they have that kind of flow, and they know how how the author has written, and what kind of sequencing has been done, how to arouse the reader's interest. So they know how, they have the vocabulary, they have the situation, the scenarios. So ultimately they will want to use that kind of words, and they will want to describe that kind of say scene or situation in their own stories as well. So basically, for young children, I would recommend that all the, especially the mothers, they need to give them a lot of diary writing. They need to let them have a journal of writing where they are, or a log of writing where they are continuously writing. They can be, but they can also write on book reviews. Whatever book that they read, they can write something about it, or they can write the opening of the book. They can write the closing of the book. They can write, well, how did the give. They can provide an alternate ending to the book. So something, so they can also work with the books. You can keep a picture of the book in front of them, tell them to what do you see in the picture, what is the cover page of the book, so they can describe the cover page of the book as well, whatever book they are reading. So this can be of course used in as in balance, and they can be used together as well, and in blend sort of for blended learning and writing as well. G.
And
So
Shella, do you feel that, like for writing, when we talk about like, taking classes or taking courses, like what do you feel that an experienced teacher gives that, for example, the child can't get from just practice? Because a lot of the things that you're saying, like writing a day, keeping a daily journal,
yes, a
reading a
log or
lot,
something.
these things तो बच्चों ने खुद ही करनी है, right? So this idea of writing
But
camp
the
or
whole thing
writing.
is, see, yeah, I would like to just add this a bit that, when the students, especially when the children are writing, point is that the parents need to make them realize that they need to do it on daily basis as well, because most of the time the children are not doing it on daily basis. They may be doing on ad hoc or something which intermittently, which this is not there. So the point is that they have to do it on regular basis. It has to become a habit. That every time their thought process is coming, and not only in only not in English language, but in other subjects as well. They have a thought process. They want to write about the world. They want to write about the climate. They want to write about the environment. They want to write about the animal habitat. They want to write about something on science topics, elements, or I don't know. So even for maybe the maybe geography or social science, what they can do is that all of that can also be inculcated in writing. See, that is knowledge. So knowledge has to be transferred. The point is that whatever they're reading, whether it's in science, history, geography, or computer, or Islamiyat, or any other subject for that matter, that knowledge can be transferred. That can be actually put on the paper, and they can write accordingly. So if they have knowledge about any, or the IT for that matter, a lot of children love building something, or they want to write about the game that they have played, or how to defeat something, how to move from one level to the next, like they make YouTube videos. So it's not necessary, or they just want to write about a script, so they can write about a conversation. So it is not necessary that they're doing this, but they have to continue. They can sort of integrate this with other subjects as well, and they can continue with their writing. So it is there all the time. And like I said, that there are the three stages. Of course, we talk about the struggle of writing that the students go through, because they don't have enough exposure what to write on, and what kind of words to use, definitely. So it's best to start with those topics that they're familiar with. If they are familiar with some kind of, or they have certain kind of routines, like a lot of people write about routines as well. So daily routines are also written like this. So if they write about routines, so they can express themselves, what did they do in the when they woke up in the morning, perhaps what kind of routine did they have during the afternoon and evening and night, and what was the best part of the day, so they can learn to express themselves, like this. So definitely they have to have a very focused approach in that too. So they need to be like that, that that anything that they are familiar, anything that they know about, they have knowledge about, they can write on it very easily. It is very difficult, it is very tough to write about something which they're unfamiliar with, or they don't have any knowledge about as such. So when you ask them to write something, make sure that it is connected. That means that they have to have connectivity of topics over there. Make sure that when you ask them to express themselves, they are writing on topics that they know about. So awareness is very important here as well, and to be connected to whatever situation and scenario that they're actually writing about. So it is extremely important. This will actually give the students or the children a boost, because definitely they will know that they will feel comfortable. See, a child will only write very effectively if they're comfortable with the topic that they're given. If they're comfortable, so initially if they're comfortable with whatever topics, eventually they will become comfortable, because practice makes perfect. So definitely when you keep on writing on different kinds of topics, and then you eventually learn to express yourself, then you will can write on any topic. We begin with familiar topics, you go on the familiar ground. Eventually when you're like gradually when you're it all builds up, then you can move on to other topics as well, because then you will find it easy to express yourself, because the words will come out easily. So try to make them write on those. And definitely there are a lot of handles to writing as well. I mean, there are a lot of like I mentioned earlier, thesaurus has been a best friend. One of the things that is very important, particularly, is that the students feel that they have
Along,
very.
so for like a child to become a good writer, what are the tools? Like you mentioned thesaurus, I'm guessing the dictionary. Like what do
Yes.
mothers need to provide to their
Yes,
children?
they need to make sure that the child is using the dictionary frequently, especially when they even while they're reading, they're coming across some difficult words, and they need to look it up in the dictionary. So that is also very important. See, when they look up the word in the dictionary, they get attached and they get attracted to that particular word. They know the meaning of it, and definitely when they go into writing of that word and they try to use it in the sentence formations, it is easier for them to do so. So make sure that even while they're doing any kind of homework, make sure the dictionary is always with them, no matter which subject. It's not necessary that it has to be the English subject. It can be in social studies, could be computer, it could be science, it could be any other subject that they're working with, and definitely they can use the dictionary. Thesaurus is excellent. I feel that thesaurus, even for the mini thesaurus for the young children, is really great. Why? Because thesaurus has a lot of synonyms in it. And again, the thing is that when they have a lot of synonyms, they have a lot of range of vocabulary that they can use. And one word, you can have so many different words, like said, like a simple word such as said. You can don't have to write said all the time. He said, she said. You can say he stated, informed, intimated, you shouted, cried out. There's so many different ways of you muttered, mumbled. So for one word you have so many different words. So whenever you want to improve or increase your vocabulary, thesaurus is the best way to go about it. And definitely we do recommend this to all our students, especially at a lower level, that they should make their vocabulary bank. Now, the vocabulary bank is something which is extremely important, because remember, you have to give them vocabulary boxes. If, for example, even for the small children, if they ask them to write, then make sure that they are also have that they have those vocabulary boxes over there, and then they have those words over there that they can use in their writing. So if you have a picture of a playground and you have related words to the playground, then what you can do is that the vocabulary bank helps a lot, because the child does not have to think about the vocabulary; they just have to focus on how to go about and write it. So they have, for young children, I think vocabulary banks work a lot. Even for older children, they have like a long list that are associated with it. The important thing is right now that they have to look into the vocabulary. So this is how you can increase the vocabulary: continuous usage of thesaurus, continuous expression of it, give them depth. And then one other thing that is very important is that I mentioned earlier was sensorial details. Now, whenever someone writes something, you have to ask them how did you feel about it? What did it feel like? How did it sound like? What was the taste of it? What was the smell of it? The fragrance, the aroma, this is something which is there. And then definitely that, so all these senses come alive. Even in writing for that matter. You have to see, you don't have to rush through writing. It is not important that you just rush through everything. You have to take your time and you have to explain the whole situation. One act or one movement has to be explained in all the senses. Even if the
And
hand is, yes,
when somebody, like when we ask our children to write every day, just say वो कहते हैं read for like a minimum of 20 minutes a day. How much
yes.
time should we ask them to write like every single day, minimum?
It does. There's no time attached to it. If the child wants to write, maybe if they can write. I said I don't give a limit. I just say that they can write. I mean, if they can write 1.5 page every day, that is good enough. If it's a small child, 1 page, 1.5 page, good. If they're like older children, they can write 3, 4 pages at one go, and if they can complete, some people complete it faster. Some students, children complete it faster. Some students, they take their own time. So it depends. There may be some people want to some children want to give it more thought. They want to think about it, they want to explore, so it takes them longer. So some people, maybe some students maybe just jump into writing. They can just start writing with the maybe just with the word go. But for the others, it is important to draft it first. Maybe they want to make a plan, or they want to brainstorm about it. They want to make a mind map about before they start writing. So everybody, so we cannot say that everybody will have the same writing time. So it could vary. It could vary. Like some people who wanted, like some people can just start writing and just on the blank page. Other people can't. They need to explore what their thing is. They want to find out more about the topic that they want to write on. So it may take them longer. So it all depends. Usually we say maybe within 1 hour they can just do the writing, if possible, or half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on how fast you write. Some people write it very fast. Some students, they write it very fast. Others, they don't. The children, G.
And should we like focus on their handwriting? What is your opinion on handwriting? Because the fact is कि obviously we're moving to like the world of computers and typing.
Yes.
Lekin abhi bhi, like at least in Lahore, I don't know about Karachi, abhi bhi in Lahore, matlab, handwriting is still considered something really important. What is
It
your
is,
view?
it is, it is, it is. It's very important. And this, I was just having a discussion the other day with my team, and I was just telling them it's so important that we need to focus on the handwriting of students. Just because the online digital tools have just arrived, it doesn't mean that we completely share this handwriting. Handwriting is very, very important. The child needs to develop their writing skills, handwriting skills, in particular the formation, the structure, the way they form the letters. It is very important, because otherwise they tend to be very messy. And right now we are still dealing with the paper, by the way, and we have pen and paper exams. We have not come out of that scenario completely. So the child's handwriting needs to be improved. They need to work on the handwriting. It is fundamental, basic. They need to go through the formations of writing. And of course, if you have a very sort of writing which flows, and very smooth writing, and you have beautiful handwriting, that is also complimented. Gee,
Okay,
that
great.
cannot be sidelined at all.
Okay, great. So we're almost at the end of our time. So Shella, can you
Yes.
like give us like a checklist of stuff that mothers must be doing, or like a checklist to turn their children into amazing writers?
Well, to begin with, like I already mentioned earlier, the first thing that they need to is to give that child a free hand. All right, free writing experience is very important. They need to make them, perhaps give them that kind of experience that they can read and they can reproduce. But initially, they can just write on the books that they've read. So book reviews are very important. I think they need to have there are lots of competitions that we hold in school for book review as well, and like we have Oxford Big Read is one of the competitions that is being held, and where the book reviews are being. So give them a format on writing. Perhaps formats are also very important because they know what to focus on. So if you have some that kind of sort of format of writing, then the child can follow through. If you give them for example, in book review, you say that maybe the setting, and then whatever the characters, and eventually what was the plot of the story, and eventually what was the conclusion, what was the favorite part of the story. So give them clues and prompts. So prompts and clues are also very important while writing. So make sure that prompts are there and clues are given to the students, so that cues rather as well, so that they can move on and write properly. So free writing experience, then you have format over there, formats are there. Then make them write. Focused reading should also be done, so that they can build up their skills of writing according to a particular topic that they need to write on. Story mountain, of course, brainstorming, mind mapping should be done. Drafts need to be made. That means that the plan needs to be there before they begin something to they write on something. And of course, vocabulary lists have to be there as well, because they need to help them build that kind of vocabulary. I've not mentioned grammar over here, because grammar is also very crucial. Past tense is the most common mistake that is made by the students, so you need to give them past tense lists. Students Companion is a very good book, because they have a lot of first, second, and third form lists there for past tense. Past tense is a very common mistake that is seen in students as well, because they're unable to convert from present into past tense. So grammar there is extremely important, except for dialogue, which is in the present tense. So that is something that need to be taught. This could be like a whole thing, but right now I think for success they could begin like this. G.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So, are there any writing clubs that in Pakistan that kids can join? I know. So on Scary Yummy, we have a book club, and I'm sure
Right. Okay.
you could develop like book clubs. But I don't think there are. It's a good idea for Institute to actually develop a writing club, because adults के तो हैं बाहर के मुल्कों में तो बहुत हैं, but
They
like
have a
a
lot of
non
master classes as well. G. Right. In the G.
yeah, like a non-fiction writers club or a fiction
Yes.
writers club or
Right.
a journalism. So I think that could be like a really good thing to develop. Great. Well,
I
Shehla,
think,
thank you.
yeah, I just want to add one thing before I leave. Creative writing, please, originality is something that we always look for. And we want students to write more on, fiction than non-fiction is, of course, there. But fiction is something which will really improve their writing skills. They need to really write stories, and they need to be creative about it. They need to think out of the box. Interesting ideas need to be there. So make sure that you're making the students write on more on what they feel, think, emotion, and characters and settings as well. More on fiction. Please focus on that. Their parents, they tend to be very, or even students and children for that matter. They write on non-fiction. Non-fiction is found everywhere. Plus, can also copy it from somewhere, but creativity doesn't come that way. Gee, yes,
Great. I think that's it for today. It was really like it was as always amazing to have you. You are such a powerhouse of wisdom and like experience, and it's always amazing to have you on
nice
Scary
to
Me.
be
And
here
I'm
as well.
really like I hope Institute goes on to develop like writing clubs or
Yes,
something
yes.
exciting that we can engage with
I
you
have
more.
my own. Gee, we have. I do a lot of writing for my students as well. Inshallah. Yes,
Great. And we're
just
looking
very
forward
focusly.
to the book lists and
Definitely.
book lists
Yeah.
and checklists that I think Institute will be putting up. Thank you so much for everyone who's watching.
Great,
Remember to
great.
download the app, because all the free demo sessions will take place on the Institute app, not on Zoom and not on StreamYard, but on the Institute app. So we really need all of you to download the app and get familiar with it, because then when we announce a demo session, it might be a little late for you to start figuring out the app. So download it, whether you have the Android phone or the iPhone. Please download it so you are clued in and you can start signing up for the free demos. Thank you so
Sure,
much,
sure.
Shehla. It was a pleasure having
Okay. Yes, same here. Lovely. Great to have
you.
you.
Thank you.
All